Hey guys, it's Danny, also known as iAnnihilate here, and today I'm going to be showing you how 9 dominated EG as Void Spirit. So this was, I think, the first game I saw of the major. It might have been the very first game even. Tundra up against EG. EG started off with their classic pick Storm Spirit first draft, and it was cool that Tundra responded with Grimstroke Doom, but then they also picked Void Spirit into Storm, which I would consider Storm having a favorable matchup there. It was just very interesting how their strategy played out, and Nine played very, very well in Void Spirit, which is one of my favorite heroes right now.
Dire team banned.
So I'd figure I'd take the time to show this game off and show off my thoughts on Void Spirit, and maybe even learn something off of Tundra.Nine here. So hit into player perspective. Starting items, there's really only two choices. You either get 3 branches, Fairy Fire, Quelling Blade, and Tango, or 2 branches if you want the bottle a little earlier. I also find it sometimes it's awkward if you're warding for yourself, because you're going to have to show that you had items in your backpack. But this is a pro game, so there's smoke to ward. Doesn't really have to show. Treants are going to try and scout out the ward too, I believe. And they're grouped as 5 anyway to kind of defend the ward. You can also see how big of a deal these D wards can be, because they all spread out to give him the 50 XP, I believe it is, yeah. For... I guess you can't see because my cam's in the way, but he got 50 XP out of the 230 he needs for level 2, which can actually make a big difference in a lot of matchups, because for one, even if Storm denies like 1 or 2 creeps, I think he's going to hit level 2 no matter what. And level 2 is like a pretty big power spike for both heroes.
The battle begins.
Having access to Overload or having access to Aether Remnant to go for some denies or to punish some overextension and over-aggressive harassing. Storm generally hits level 2 first because he can nuke the wave a lot quicker. And they're both going to start off. Void Spirit should be a little more patient, but he's going to end up aggroing creeps back so that he can kind of match the Storm's push. Because he would want the wave to stay basically at equilibrium. Whereas Storm wants to get like a creep advantage to get some more harass off. Now, Abed lost a lot of HP because he lost his block for the most part. Just getting clicked a lot. A lot of times in this matchup, not only for Void Spirit, but other melee heroes too, you're trying to like poke at the Storm and bait him into using Q and then getting out of the way, or just hitting him. Like, it's kind of a mix-up type of situation where you walk at them, you're gonna auto-attack them. If they Q, you run away. And then there's like the little mix-up of like, oh, he's just baiting me, but then you hit him anyway and you hit him for free. But you can't always do that. Just kind of depends what the wave is like, because basically the less damage you take, the better. And for Void Spirit, a lot of his matchups are based on who hits 6 first. So denying is a lot more important than last hitting for the most part. Like, getting your bottle is obviously really important. And it's pretty easy to get your own farm, at least like 2 out of 4 of the creeps every time, just from, you know, you have your Resonant Pulse for 1 at the very least, sometimes 2. You can also secure range creeps early. But now that Storm's level 3, and I'll double check in case he does something weird. Yeah, he has pull, and that'll secure him a lot of denies. He's already up 2 denies. And Void Spirit's Aether Remnant is much harder to use, especially on a range hero that sits in a bunch of creeps. So getting 6 first is like oftentimes a struggle in this matchup, and why I'd consider it Storm favored. Whereas like a matchup like even Ember Spirit, that's really bad for Void Spirit in general. Like, he can't really deal with Sleight of Fist and Flame Guard very well. If you sneak in a bunch of denies with your Aether Remnant and just like your good animation, sometimes the Flame Guard's awkward. If you just hit 6 like by half a level first, like you have like that 4 or 5 deny buffer, you can just kill him with a rotation. It depends on your supports, obviously, but I find that matchup like probably a little scrappier and harder to play, but you have more opportunity to win, if that makes sense. Like, it's more swingy. Whereas this one, you're saving your W always to dodge remnants or making him pull and Q at the same time, so he gets 1 less overload at least. And you're just trying to go even at best, and if you're much better than the Storm, and you rack up denies, you can maybe kill them at 6, but it's very hard. I like this little maneuver here where he drags the wave because Storm left to go for the bounty to take the bounty rune without losing any creeps. Kind of gets punished for it by the Nature's Prophet, but you can see like this would just there's like some drawbacks to doing this because he's basically making a huge wave for the Storm to harass him with. But it's like that worth to just save all the XP possible and not like miss any XP just because your 6 is so important. A lot of the times on Void Spirit, as soon as you hit 6 as well, you can just TP to either the safe lane is pretty much always a guaranteed kill because they're going to be pushed up farther, or sometimes you can even TP to the off lane if for whatever reason they're pushed up, but there's almost always a place somewhere at level 6 too, whether it's mid or safe lane or whatever. Drink some tea. I like getting 1 null if I'm not planning on upgrading my boots early, so like when I don't go phase boots. I would always get a magic stick against Storm or Ember, in most matchups to be honest. The base damage and the stats from the Null Talisman honestly don't like really help that much, but it's kind of just a nice in-between item that fills your slot, and a lot of the time I've seen people get treads even, but I just opt for phase boots or brown boots witchblade as my first item. This game we'll see 9 go for boots of travel, and I think it's mostly because there's a Visage on his team. So like Visage is very immobile, but it adds to Void Spirit's mobility. And I'll just pause real quick to finish this. It adds to his mobility because obviously he can teleport to the bird, so he can always be where Visage is at the very least. And like we saw here, I think Storm also cleared like a small camp at some point, but he hit 6 first, and let's say they were even, like both about to hit 6 off this wave. The Storm will always get the last wave first because he can pull you into Remnant, it kills the wave at the same time. You don't have nearly the amount of clear. Like even if you Resonant Pulse and like let's say you had 2 and Dissimulate, 2 and Pulse, you have to hit the creeps a lot to set them all up for that, or like get them low and potentially get denied during a pull. And when you don't have your Dissimulate up, your shields are down for him remnanting you a bunch of times. So it's just very awkward. That was an interesting remnant, actually. So yeah, it's pretty hard to win this matchup. A lot of it will just come down to combining his spells with the Grimstroke in the mid game to be able to land kills on the Storm. The Storm had a okay lane. Not sure why his net worths are a little lower. Maybe it has something to do with the bounty runes at the beginning of the game, and maybe in the mid game too, because they denied the one bottom. I think Storm at the top one though. Maybe there's just some clarity shuttled or something, but they're basically even. And the first thing for all Spirit heroes is how they play for the 6-minute rune. So he's saving as much of his resources as possible. He's going to 1 rune early because Storm has a mobility advantage. And obviously EG know this too. So they're going to expend a lot of resources to go for this rune. Oh, he even baits the DD rune there. Gets it first. And at this point, because Void Spirit got the rune, it actually swings the matchup like entirely. I think Storm has to go to base now. He's going to miss a full wave with 3 range creeps. It just feels really terrible. There's also going to be a catapult and a DD Void Spirit hitting his tower. Plus the combo of Void Spirit plus Grimstroke is just way stronger than Storm and Jakiro at this point. He even kills them. I think Abed thought he could stay in XP range, but that's kind of naive in a way. Like, he should expect the Void Spirit with DD to just dive him, knowing he has no mana. So I think it's a big mistake from Abed. Gets out of the way of that remnant at least. Actually almost lives here. The Null Talismans helped Abed a lot. He had 35 mana left with 2 Nulls. So that evens things out a little bit, but Void Spirit's just way, way farther ahead because Abed missed that huge, huge wave that was under his tower. You have come by a power you never know. So the way you combo your spells in this hero for the most part is you ult and then Q during the slow on your ult. and you want to queue like next to your hero so that it has no travel time, and that's where you're gonna like. It's not exactly instant, but you can catch people off guard a lot. It's like kind of like blink stunning people on Sven if you like blink next to them versus blinking to the side of them. And like the travel time is so low that you can catch people way easier, even if they like phase shift or something or BKB. It's not as easy as that, I'd say, like because they usually react to you astral stepping, not necessarily the remnant coming out. But at this point, he's going travels with Visage, so he's going to rely a lot on Visage's damage and the Grimstroke being with him to secure kills. As far as pubs go, I prefer to have more solo play potential, especially in NA pubs, I guess, and especially in lower MMR pubs. Like, if you're 3K trying to learn Void Spirit, I highly recommend just getting Witchblade first. Just Brown Boots Witchblade or Phase Boots Witchblade. And try and get, like, your level 12 and Witchblade by, like, 15 minutes the latest. Like, you really... If you go Brown Boots Witchblade, you kind of want it at the same time a Puck would get it, so, like, 12 to 13 minutes. Phase Boots might delay it a little bit, and levels will come mostly with kills, not so much farm on this hero. So he farms a little slower than Puck. Like, even with all this action with 1 kill... He's at 4k net worth, which is good for Void Spirit at 9.5 minutes, but it's a lot harder to do what Wraith King has right now, which is like 4.7. Because it's not even the same as like a Storm or like a Lina. Like, you're just not going to farm as quickly, but you kind of do a little more with less, if that makes sense. Especially against like Linas and Coddles and these super like fast heroes, I find the Witchblade to be super, super useful to like, stay on top of people and catch. And the added burst is oftentimes enough to kill anything. So, this is a pro game, and a lot of grouping up will happen early, especially with the supports. A lot of the times, whoever the most active hero on the map is in the first, like, after the laning phase, around now, I think people have, like, started grouping up a bit more. The 4 should be glued to this Void Spirit's hip. Maybe he'll make a play with the Doom at some point, but the offlaner's not like a playmaker, like a Dragon Knight or something. And then, like, it becomes a little more complicated on who plays with who. But for the most part, if you have Void Spirit on your team, or you are the Void Spirit, you need to, like, play with your 4 a lot if you can. If they don't listen, it's whatever, but... Like, this kill is literally impossible without Grimstroke. And this stuff puts a lot of pressure on the map. You'll see them, like, play together a lot. They can kill anyone who's alone. This game, they can play pretty split as well, because Void Spirit's rushing travels. And he can always +1 on the Visage, who's really tanky. Wraith King is fine, just, like, taking as much space as possible on his own. And they have a greedy 4. They have a Doom. They have the Doom Grim combo. Doom's kind of going to do whatever he wants as well. So their lineup is, like, pretty cool, to be honest. Oh, I guess the Grim is 5. Sorry, I'm used to Grims being 4 even. It's just because they have a Doom. So normally the Doom's role would be the Grim, and then like something like a Wyvern or a Bane even would be kind of doing what Doom's doing, kind of off on his own, bodying for the Wraith King, giving vision, placing wards in the like safer part of the map. When he has his spell up, he might look to set up for the Void Spirit as well or something, but kind of think of it like a lot of the times you're 4, it could be like a Nyx or an Earth Spirit or a Shadow Shaman. What other heroes are popular? Even like a Rubik or something. Something that can add damage to your combo or help you set up your combo. It's like Grim is like probably one of the best to pair with a lot of the spirits. If not, like Coddle is also great. But yeah, with this Travels build, they're planning on splitting up a lot and just farming the whole map. It's very difficult to pressure tier 2s in modern Dota. They've been buffed way too many times, and they're like really easy to defend with very little resources. So oftentimes people try to only push them with like an Aegis timing at like 20 to 25 minutes, or they're just that far ahead, or they have the right heroes for it. Like even with the Visage Wraith King, they haven't even touched a tier 2 with all the tier 1, like with the tier 1 mid and bottom dead. They're probably not going to try and touch them for another 10 minutes. So it makes a lot of sense if you're the super mobile hero to kind of play far away from the action so that you can join with your mobility. So like the travels with the Visage, for instance. I'm not exactly sure what their game plan is bottom right now because we've been in Void Spirit's perspective, but they can even do like some type of 2-1-2 formation with Grim and Void Spirit in the top side, ready to TP to the Visage, and then Doom kind of in front of Visage and Wraith King off on his own, farming all the stuff in the middle of the map. And I think that would get the most out of the map. And it seems to be that's what they're kind of moving towards right now. It's kind of like an advanced concept of like where to position your heroes like together. Oftentimes, like you'll see 4 protect 1 stuff where people are grouped as 4 while the carry's off on his own, or grouped as 3 and then somebody's dead laning. So it's kind of like a 1-3-1. This is like as greedy as possible for farming. Runes are incredibly important, so he came to the rune instead of farming top. Maybe he felt a little scared as well. The other thing that you'll see this game that makes the travels a lot better, from what I saw live, is Furion's going to be as annoying as possible, especially with the 15-minute shard timing, just splitting all of the lanes. I don't know why the frames keep dropping. Let me try to pause and play. And he's just food for Void Spirit this entire game.
There is nothing for you anywhere.
Aghanims will help him catch the storm. It's actually great against clearing the TB illusions and stopping him from getting Sunder off if he doesn't have BKB. As well as just like killing supports in general too. Silences is just super nice. A lot of the time your job on Void Spirit or Storm even, kind of Ember, like Ember pokes a lot first. Post BKB, it's definitely your job as Ember, is to just jump the backline and stop their supports from getting off their most impactful spells. So if like Sand King, let's just say like a team fight were to happen, if Sand King jumps the Wraith King or something, if at the same time Void Spirit counter initiates silences the Jakiro and the Storm, like if they were in the back, then the initiations gets broken up, and Void Spirit's probably just going to kill the Jakiro and get away. And that's kind of your job. You just want to be as disruptive as possible in the backline supports. Sometimes when you're like super farmed, like this idea can change to where you can just go on whoever you want. But like in this kind of game where they haven't really gotten a insurmountable lead yet, he's definitely just going to be aiming the backline. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stuff. You can see how desperate EG are in this game to try and make anything happen. Even though they kind of get to farm a decent amount of the map, I don't think that they really have a timing in this game based on how poor Storm is. Like, Storm's not scaling at all, Void Spirit's scaling, Visage is scaling. Furion's kind of having to take farm that normally would go to other people too, because they're just trying to make space. And Terrorblade can't solo carry this game against Doom and Void Spirit Grim. Like, there's just no way. Especially if Grim eventually gets an Ags or something. Void Spirit has so much magic burst for Terrorblade that goes through all his armor. And obviously they have a Doom for the solo carry. I think EG have classically played, like, for a big carry. Like the Terrorblade style, Naga in the past. I'm not sure what else I can really think of. They just try to make Arteezy really fat. And it's not like a bad style or anything, but Doom kind of works really well against that, so. There is like obvious drawbacks to Doom. When I watched this live, what happened in the bot lane was that Visage was getting like pantsed by Arteezy and CS, but Doom found an Ice Ogre creep, which completely saved the lane because both Furion and Terrorblade deal nothing but physical damage, and the ice armor's broken for like countering that in the lane. And they just completely 180'd the lane. Like Visage caught right back up. Arteezy couldn't lane anymore. Had they not found that ice armor creep, I think this game would have looked a lot different. I think the Doom would have been a lot farther behind. He wouldn't have been able to be as greedy. The Visage would also have like had his game slowed down tremendously. They would have taken the towers a lot slower. But with a good start, the Dire draft is kind of unstoppable. Other items I tend to go in Void, so like if I am going Witchblade, if they have a Pugna, I almost always build BKB. The Nether Ward is just that like stupid. There's also other matchups where BKB can be nice. Against Puck, you can get like Yules or BKB. Yules like catches him with the Remnant out of if you go on him. It also gets you out of silence or helps you kite the coil. For the most part, you try to avoid BKB, but when it's good, you kind of have to get it, if that makes sense. You want to get Ags always at some point, but there have even been games where if you're just solo killing people and you don't need the silences, it could be fine to just go Witchblade, Kaya-Sange. But I think something like Brown Boots, Witchblade, Aghanims into E-Blade even, and then like Travels at some point, depending on how the game is going, would be like the standard build I would go for this hero right now. And then situational items would be like Shivas if there's a lot of healing and you need armor. Kaya-Sange if there's just a lot of burst and stuns you have to deal with. Aeon Disc against certain drafts as well. But core items, I would say, for me this patch would be Witchblade, Aghanims, and E-Blade. As far as talents go, we can speak about that a bit. In games where I feel like I need the mana regen, like I'm just doing a lot of stuff, I'm farming a lot, there's a lot of space that I can take to use the extra mana in, I'm not just running around looking for kills. The mana regen feels really good. Most of the time I just skip my talents until later. So at 15 I always grab the 80 pulse damage, especially if I have Ags, like it makes no sense not otherwise. But, like, especially versus this 50 Aether Remnant damage talent, it's just better to level the actual spell itself. The mana regen's okay. It's not, like... It's not great, but... Because, like, I've been going Witchblade a lot, and I used to go Yules or Kaya-Sange, like, if you just go Boots of Travel, Aghanims, you're really gonna be hurting for mana. Same thing if you go, like... If you go, like, Kaya-Sange, the mana regen isn't as necessary. Or if you get a Kaya at any point. So, like, now that he has Kaya, the mana regen talent is kind of, it's not, like, useless, but it's offset a lot in usefulness, whereas, like, he would actually prefer to have the 50 damage now. Because, especially with the Kaya, you get the spell amp bonus, and if he finishes Kaya-Sange just at an E-Blade, all the extra damage helps. Like, it goes from 230 to 260. If you add another 50 on that with the 8%, it just all kind of adds up. Plus, he has the Fairy Trinket as well, so it's 13%. And then you also get extra damage on your shard. It's another thing I didn't mention. I actually think... I used to only get the shard for damage, for the most part, before it was nerfed. And they nerfed it when they changed it from 20 to 15-minute time in-game. But... it's actually way better as, like, a disengage tool. So... there was a game I played today against, like, Wisp, and there was a bunch of stuns, and I would go on the Wisp with, like, almost all my spells, and instead of using the W for damage, I would just use it to get away, because I had to use both my ultis, basically, to kill the Wisp, so they would do their damage, and it can auto-attack during. But I would save it as, like, a defensive spell, and it actually works so much better with the extra rings for that. It kind of feels like you have a third ulti to get out. Because... like, Void Spirit's biggest problem, which we're probably not going to see this game, because it's just an absolute stomp, is that you use all your spells for damage, and then you're kind of shields down in the middle of their whole team. Whereas, like, you'd prefer to do this combo, and then have your ulti to get out. But sometimes, like, let's say there's a Puck or a Kunkka. If you use your Dissimulate like that, it just, like, lets them easily time their spells on you. Like, if you use Dissimulate, Kunkka can just X you, and then you can't ult away. If you use your Dissimulate, and you're about to pop out onto somebody, Puck can just silence it or coil you. So, like, you're setting yourself up for their spells, whereas if you just ulti twice, like, you ulti in, Q, E, ulti out, or ulti again, and then W to get out, then, like, you're in your invulnerability to get out already, if that makes sense. I'll just quickly hop into a demo lobby after the game's done as well to kind of show some stuff. But we'll look at, like, one team fight, because this game's pretty over already. And just notice his CS this game as well. Like, this... a lot of mid-heroes, a lot of the problems I see for lower-level mids is they just... They either farm too much, or they learn that they farmed too much, and then they do the opposite, which is they don't farm ever again. Like, they overcorrect themselves, if that makes sense? Or they don't farm enough. It's important to make plays, but you need to scale. Having top net worth on Void Spirit this game is huge. It means, like, Terrorblade or, like, anybody... He has the most single target burst on his team. More so than the Wraith King. And, like, usually the problem on these kind of heroes is that you have to be doing stuff constantly because... I mean, like, he has the most catch on his team. He has to go kill his Furion. He has to walk around a lot. There's a lot of time you don't get to spend farming, whereas, as, like, if you noticed, we didn't really watch the Wraith King this game, but he did nothing but hit creeps, really, and show up to fights. Push some towers here and there. They get a lot more time to kind of scale, if that makes sense. Like, their job is more so to hit the creeps, whereas Void Spirit has to find farm, and be really efficient in between killing people and setting things up on the map. Taking more dangerous farm because of his mobility. And yeah, don't forget that you have to farm as a mid. Would be like a very good general tip. It's not okay. Like, let's say he had like 100 CS and he's 8-1 in this game. I think he would probably win anyway. But that's just because of the position they're in. In more even-ish games, it would matter a lot if he had that extra 100 CS. Like, this extra item, like, he could probably drop the Kai'San and still win this game, but it'll make a huge difference in a lot of situations. You can see, like, how much time he's spent hunting in the past, like, 3 minutes. And this is kind of the problem a lot of mid players have, like, even 10 minutes before this, well, they'll just spend way too much time running around in circles. And if you watch, like, top mid players, like, especially these pro games, you don't notice just how efficient they are with their movements a lot of the time. You just, like, notice the team fights or the kills. It's really important to pick up on the stuff in between. Obviously, with Boots of Travel, he can farm a little freer because he can always join the team, but even without Boots of Travel, you have to find ways to join your team. This wouldn't even... If there was no natures in this game, I'd honestly think the travels would be a little excessive. Maybe he would get them anyway just because of the Visage synergy, but the lead they had in the early game, they would be able to set up to take Roche and the tier 2 pretty early, or even just the tier 2. And having the outpost is basically like Boots of Travel. It's kind of why split pushing is not so strong right now, even though Nature's Prophet's being picked a lot. I'm not a big fan of the outposts being in Dota. I feel... It does feel nice that you don't get ratted as often, and you get a nice firm, like, handle on the map once you have it, but it does kind of let people get too much, if that makes sense. Kind of feels super hard to make big split push comebacks. Octarine Core is great. He didn't go E-Blade or Witchblade, which I would have probably opted to earlier. This Octarine Core is going to make him really tanky, and it's going to give him cooldown reduction, obviously. I wouldn't even mind a Hex, and then like a Refresher. At this point, I think catching the Storm, or even Hexing Arteezy during the... Like, if they Grim ulti the Terrorblade, or like the Storm +1, and he can combo with Hex or something, that'd be pretty nice. But I think his idea is he's just going to go in, start the fight, and then wants to go in again later. So having CDR will help a lot, and just being tanky. Even a BKB wouldn't be bad, just because of Macro Pyre and Epicenter. Just having BKB up for that, and like the Sunder as well. It's very underrated how strong BKB is against Sunder. It's much stronger than Linken's. A lot of the times, you'll find yourself in situations where, like, if Terrorblade had, like, 5k more gold and the game was more even, you're the burst damage that needs to go in Terrorblade, so you cast all your spells, and then he just, like, sunders, and you're just like, shit, what do I do now, right? Or you have to get out so he doesn't sunder, whereas with BKB, he might be too low to just auto-attack you during both your BKBs. Plus, your ulti goes through BKB as well, so if you're like both BKB, you still do some amount of damage if you were able to start on them before BKB.
Dire's middle tower is under
It's very difficult to BKB properly against Void Spirit. If you like ult on top of somebody, Q, and they BKB and you just W out with your shard, then like they've wasted their BKB. Or like you can see here, it goes through BKB, so you just ults them. It's like, it's weird because he's all magic burst, but the BKB doesn't help too much. Like it dodges dissimulate, but who really cares? And the pulses and the remnant, but most of his damage is honestly his ulti and comboing it with his spells.
Dire's radiant tower.
Very smart play. He noticed how much the Furion has been ratting. He just sniffs him out.
Radiant are under attack.
His job's kind of base defense while his team pressures.
His middle tower is under attack.
And right on cue, right as he respawned, he thought he was coming back. He went top instead. They were very on top of this. I played a pub game today where we lost to this nonsense Nature's Prophet stuff because it was so hard to catch him. And the Terrorblade eventually got super fat. So I think, like, in this game, if Terrorblade could get all 6 of his items, and, like, Storm doesn't need that much net worth, he just needs, like, the Ags and a bunch of Null Talismans, really. Sand King doesn't need that much more net worth either, they're kind of set. If Arteezy could just cheat in, like, 15k gold, they could probably win this game. So, like, Nature's Prophet, if he died, like, less, and, like, all these moves were more successful and he bought more time, there's actually somewhat of a window for EG to win, I think. But against very good players, like, I think Tundra is one of the best teams at the Major, it's very hard for them not to just catch you. Just going in with Aegis. And, like, while this is going on, you see that 33 kills the Jakiro, because it's just so disruptive to deal with the Void Spirit in your backline. He silences everyone in AoE. He's just putting purple all over the screen, stunning people, dealing a massive damage, just putting particles all over your screen, and then, like, their backline gets to play uninterrupted, so the Visage is hitting people, Grimm's getting to cast all his spells on whoever he wants, Doom's waiting patiently for a good opening, and he's just kind of in front, just causing chaos. Whereas the opposite isn't true for EG. There's just, they constantly can't get their spell, like, they can't combo any spells. Sand King couldn't stun there, he was silenced and got doomed. Jakiro has an ice path, but it was late because he was silenced. And it just makes it so easy for his team to play. That's basically what your goal is in team fights on Void Spirit. Yeah, they're just gonna wrap this game up. This is a pretty clean game.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
As in the Void Spirit's perspective, honestly didn't see too many mistakes Tundra made. Like, I think this game was just very well played all across the board. Especially since I had also watched it live. Maybe they could have pressured a little more earlier, but it's really hard to say. It definitely felt like they had a 5k lead very early and it didn't grow very much, but that could have just been part of this, like, they just wanted to hit their timing really hard and they knew their timing was going to win no matter what. You have to play, like, a little less over the top in tournament games. You have to play very stable. So yeah, let me just hop into demo mode on Void Spirit, just showcase some abilities. So the first thing you'll notice on this hero is that if you try to cast a remnant far away, there's a travel time.
Prepare for
Whereas if you try to cast it right next to me, it's much, much faster. So you want to go like this, basically. I turned around there, which is like a little unfortunate, but the less you turn, the faster as well, and you can kind of practice it. So if I just make a Medusa like S and Y and travels or something, I'll make her walk back and forth. So like, if I try to catch her, I have to... Sorry, 1 second. I have to kind of time it with her moving around. It's a little harder, especially if it's BKB, where if I go like that, it'll stun her like in the slow basically as well. It kind of sets it up for you. Your usual combo, like I talked about, is going to be just like Q, then E, then W, like Alt, Q, W, and then your W, yeah. Well, let me say that one more time. So it's Alt, Q, E, W. And you want to spam it too, because there's backswing on your spells. So like, if I just press them all once, oh, that was too quick. So like, if I shift Q them, so I'll shift Q walk and then Alt Q E W. You can see how that was kind of slow, whereas like, if I'm spamming them a little harder, I can cancel my animations. It's a lot more obvious on heroes like Lina and stuff too, but all the backswings in Dota, you can cancel. So like, there's this little twirl he does, you can like cancel out of it. Whereas if I don't, so this is me shifting E then W, it's a little slower. It's a little subtle, but it's slower for sure. So you're either going to do that, or if you want to play a little safer, you can alt back or alt twice and then save your W to get out. The other thing that I mentioned in the game is that your alt also goes through BKB, and they stack. So like, you can use them both at once if you wanted to. So like, that was 3 of them. It's 2 of them. You don't have to stagger them. Oftentimes, if you're chasing somebody, staggering them is pretty useful because of the slow, like I said. So like, you can wait for the slow to end, then go again. But in situations where you're very, very like worried for your life, like you think you can get coiled or something, or you're silenced, like there's a hex or something, like you want to just kill the Shadow Shaman instantly, you can go like that, and then you can save your W to get out, especially if you're the Shard. Shard gives you a lot of mobility, like I said. There's some other like nuances and stuff with the spells for the most part, like it's which way you're facing, like it's gonna go. You can kind of spam your W to see where the circles are going to be. And if you want to practice it a little bit, like, this will hit the range tree, you know, you can kind of aim it like that. But yeah, that's about it for this video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, comment if you want to see other stuff, or if you like this content. And I'll catch you guys next time.